here we are at the Square Enix booth for E3 2016. We are with Tabata-san once again, and we're checking up on the new features presented for Final Fantasy 15, of course. But first, you've defined this world as not like a huge open world, but the scale is so huge. So how did you approach the world structure design?
The first thing we did to create the world was make sure we had the world as a base. So before we adding anything else, we made that first. And we created a wide world with all sorts of different areas, different places in it, and made it a real living world with all sorts of creatures there, and a full day-night cycle which changes with time. So we first got that down as a solid base to carry on the development. So after we created the world as a base, the next thing we did was create the actual core game systems itself, so you can seamlessly travel through this open world together and go into combat as well as exploration seamlessly. And then the idea of traveling together with your comrade characters, and they move together with you. And we wrote the storyline of, obviously, that you are adventuring through that world. And that's how we went about creating it.
Mm-hmm. Now that you mention creatures and navigating the world, what can we expect from the Chocobo as transport means?
I think probably the best way to think about the Chocobo is as a kind of activity you can take part in the world itself. So the Chocobos in Final Fantasy 15, they are a method of transport at times. They can also be a fun leisure activity in their own right at times. And sometimes they'll be partners and comrades along the way on your journey too. So they're all sorts of different things.
Speaking about activities, what can we expect in terms of side activities? And is there any surprise the fans can look forward to in this regard?
Certainly about Chocobos, there's maybe not massive surprises yet. A lot of the information about Chocobos has gone out already, but you'll certainly, from now, what we show will be, you'll see how you actually travel with the Chocobos around the world and see them flying and jumping and swimming around places, and how you can actually do that in the game.
Here at E3 2016, you've presented some gameplay running on the Xbox One. How has been working with Microsoft hardware, and can we expect any if you're taking advantage of the Xbox S new features, for example, HDR?
Okay, so first of all, to do with how we're working with Microsoft, it's been a very big learning experience actually. We've learned a lot from working with Microsoft. Because traditionally we very much thought about Final Fantasy from terms of our traditional fan base, of the existing fans. But when we were talking with them and discussing with them, they said, well, we really want to work together looking at a much wider audience and appeal out to a much broader section of gamers. So our whole approach really was informed by those discussions with Microsoft. But obviously with the new version of the Xbox One, I'm not sure exactly the capabilities of it myself. I haven't heard all the information about it, so I want to get that information first and have a good study of it before then looking at it and thinking, okay, well, what we can do next with that then.
That on Microsoft and on PlayStation, you've presented the Prompto VR mission. How did you develop that, and why is it third person?
Okay, so for VR, obviously you've got the PlayStation VR, but that's not the only one. There's a lot of other different headsets available out there. And certainly we've been looking at developing stuff and doing some experimentation with VR within our development studio for quite a while now. So obviously, the thing with Sony, they approached us quite recently actually asking if we would do a demo of some kind for the VR. And we actually managed to develop that in a very short period of time. It wasn't a long development on that at all. So obviously when we were thinking about which part of the Final Fantasy 15 world we wanted to cut out and use for that, that little demo, the VR demo, and we thought that probably the best fit and the one that would really convince people the most and be the most fun would be to use Prompto as the main character you play there and have a gun shooting kind of action game involving him. So that's why we chose to use him and do it in that way.
All right, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Arigatou gozaimasu.
I hope you support Final Fantasy 15.